Every year, the New York City Marathon takes place on the first Sunday of November, and this year, that's November 2nd. And if you're running the New York City Marathon or spectating, in this video, we're going to talk about everything you need to know about this beautiful race. Hey runners, my name is Letty from Marathon Media. Thank you so much for tuning in, and today we are going to cover the largest marathon in the world. The New York City Marathon indeed draws 55,000 people from over 130 countries, which is watched by millions of people, not just on site, but all over the globe. That is right, the New York City Marathon truly is a world event that captures the heart and the energy of one of the most dynamic cities in the world. And for those running, that means they are going to be going through the 5 boroughs of New York that do showcase the diversity, culture, and unrelenting spirit of New York City. So let's hop into that. I'm going to give you a quick outline of everything we're going to touch on. We're going to talk about the history of the New York City Marathon. We're going to talk about some of the legendary runners of this race, then dive straight into the elite field of this race. Then we're going to learn about the prize money that's in it for those said runners. Then we're going to talk about the things that are practical for you if you are running, which includes race week. What does it entail? What events are must-attend events for you guys? Spoiler alert, obviously the Expo is going to be one of them. Then we're going to talk about the logistics and transportation of getting you to that race and everything else that entails, followed by a spectator guide for those loved ones that want to see you out there. Then we're going to tackle the race course so you know what you can expect, because that's very, very important. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about some tips for people running the New York City Marathon. And that's basically it. So let's get started. All right, so about the history of the New York City Marathon, if you are not familiar with it, it's actually kind of fun. The New York City Marathon was started in 1970 when there was 127 runners that had signed up for $1. And the course was quite different. It consisted of 4 loops in Central Park. In that year, 1970, there was only 55 finishers, which we know is not a good percentile. Anyway, moving on, the actual New York City Marathon as we know it, going through those 5 boroughs, debuted in 1976. And that was when this local race transformed into an international race. Then over the next decades, the New York City Marathon grew and finally is what it is today, one of the 7 world marathon majors that are super hard to get into, with very high numbers of applicants and a very low number of acceptance rates, which makes it, in my opinion, more desirable for a lot of runners, especially because it is one of the stars that everybody wants to tick off on their bucket list. Well, not everybody, but a lot of you guys. Now on to some historical fun facts. In 1972 was the first year when the NYC 6 women staged a protest because they didn't want to have separate starts from the men. And that was a push towards equality. In 1979, Greta Weitz was the first woman to run the race in sub 2 hours and 30 minutes. And last but not least, another not so fun fact is that in 2012, the New York City Marathon was actually canceled because of Hurricane Sandy. That was the only year that the New York City Marathon did not take place. Now moving on to legendary runners, we of course have Bill Rodgers, who won the New York City Marathon 4 times. We have Greta Weitz, who ran the New York City Marathon and ended up winning it 9 times. And we also have my favorite athlete, wheelchair athlete Marcel Hug, winning this marathon 6 times. All of these legends, along with thousands of other runners, helped elevate this event, in my opinion, to make it the global running event that it truly is. Now, moving on to this year's Elite Field 2025. Who do we have? Well, it was announced shortly after Sydney that Eliud Kipchoge and Sifan Hassan are running this race. Now, does Eliud Kipchoge still run marathons to win? In my opinion, probably not. And in his opinion, probably not either, because he's on a mission which we learned about in Sydney and obviously also prior. His message is that no human is limited and that we all can achieve anything that we want and solve our problems. And we do that by becoming runners and working through it. He promotes running as a vehicle to solve problems and inspire others to push their limits. He's amazing. And I think after everything he has achieved, him not running as fast as he used to run just makes him more human and more relatable to us. At the same time, he still runs faster than most men in our country, trying to run Olympic trial qualifiers. So there goes that. But he will be there and I can't wait to see him. Alongside him will be Sifan Hassan. Sifan Hassan is not done with her career yet at all. And if anything, she is a hopeful of winning this marathon. She represents her country of the Netherlands with a marathon in a blazing fast time of 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 44. And I cannot wait to see how she does. Those two, Eliud Kipchoge and Sifan Hassan, are the headliners for this marathon, and we will see them at all press conferences. They are there to promote the event just like they did in Sydney, and I can't wait to see how all that goes. But we're not done. The rest of the elite field is also very, very fast. So for the men's field, for the competitive part of it, we are talking about Benson Kipruto of Kenya. Benson Kipruto's PR is a 2:02:16, and he is a previous winner of the Chicago Marathon as well as the record holder of the Tokyo Marathon. Also, his teammate, Evans Chebet, will be there, who has previously also won the Boston Marathon and the New York City Marathon. His PR is a 2:03. Alexander Mutiso of Kenya will also be there, whose PR is a 2:03:16. And then we also have Dereza Gileta of Ethiopia, a runner with a PR of 2:02:38. So we are talking about a very, very fast field that we can look forward to. Now, on the American side, we have Bia Simbasa, Alex Meyer, Colin Benny, Reed Fisher, and Joel Reichow. And I promise to familiarize myself with these athletes a little bit more before the race happens, but I'm sure a lot of you have heard of them. Now, for the women's field, besides Sifan Hassan, we have Sharon Lockety. She previously won the Boston Marathon, and her PR is a 2:17:22. Also with a PR of 2:17:29, we have Sheila Chepkiro of Kenya, and Helen Obiri with a 2:17:41. So it looks like for the women's field, there's a lot of women PR that are really close together. So that'll be exciting to see how that plays out on race day. Now, for the women's field, we have some pretty well-known names. We have Emily Sisson, Fiona O'Keefe, Sarah Hall, and Molly Seidel running this race, which that's going to be great because those are recognizable household marathoner names and we can cheer them on. And I don't have to do as much research for this segment. Now, moving on to the wheelchairs, we have, of course, Marcel Hug. But I know that we also, at this point, still have Daniel Romanchuk on the roster, who has won New York before. And I'm saying at this point because I know that Daniel Romanchuk had an injury that he sustained when a spectator was crossing his path during the Sydney Marathon, which absolutely sucks because he had to do a lot of rehabilitation for his shoulders. Hopefully, there will not be an announcement that he cannot compete because I love watching him race. So that's on the roster. From Japan, we will also have Tomokoi Suzuki, who is also very fast. And Josh Cassidy of Canada will also be there. I met him in Sydney. Super nice guy. I will be cheering him on as well. Last but not least, we'll also have another strong competitor, David Weir of Great Britain, that we will also cheer on because we literally cheer on everybody that's racing. Deep down inside, I want all of them to win. And only one can win, but it's just beautiful to see a fast race. Now, for the women's wheelchair division, we have Susanna Scaroni. She's from the USA, and she's one of those household names as well because she's always one of the winners. Alongside her, there will be Catherine de Brunner of Switzerland, as well as Manuela Scher, also of Switzerland, and Tatiana McFadden of the United States. All right, so now that we know the names and we can do our research as to who to cheer on, let's learn a little bit about the prize money that's involved in this race. The New York City Marathon remains one of the highest paid events when it comes to marathoning. The total amount of prize money is $800,000. And let's see how that is structured. For the open division, there's going to be prize money of $100,000 for each winner of each division, and that's for the runners. For the wheelchair athletes, that amount is going to be $50,000. In addition, the USA division offers $25,000 to their top contenders, and there's a $50,000 bonus for anyone setting a course record. And what are those course records? Well, they're pretty recent. In 2023, Tamirat Tola broke the men's record running a 2:04:58. And the women's record from 2023 stands at 2:22:31 by Margaret Okayo. For the wheelchair, Marcel Hug, who else set the course record at 1 hour 25 and 26 seconds. And Catherine de Brunner, also of Switzerland, set the record in 2023 for the women's wheelchair at 1:39:22. All right, so moving on from the elite athletes, we're now going to talk about the race week and all the events that are there and which ones you definitely must attend. The number one event for you guys to attend is obviously going to be the Expo. The Expo takes place from October 30th to November 1st, so from Thursday to Saturday at the Javits Center, which is not very far from Central Park. It's actually just southwest of it. You can walk to it, but it's easy to take public transportation. And the Expo is where you're going to pick up your bib, where you're going to find all the vendors, all the samples, all the speakers, and all of the official merchandise. In my opinion, the New York City Marathon Expo is one of the few that still is really amazing. I've been to the New York City Marathon Expo 3 times and I loved it each time. Just because you have a ton of vendors, you have a ton of samples, and you have everything really that you want to get you into the mode of you're a runner. It's a central place to meet for all the runners. There's tons of shakeouts organized around the expo area too, and it's just a lot of fun. So take your time to go to the expo. Try to go as soon as you can. So if you're arriving on Thursday, try to go on Thursday. Just because the expo gets busy and busier the closer you get to marathon day, and you do want to get off your feet if you're running this marathon. Now, the other event that is almost a must go to is if you are planning on checking a bag, you cannot do that on race day morning. You have to do it prior to the race. You have to remember that because I almost didn't when I was in Sydney. Sydney kind of had a similar situation that you had to drop your bag off at the expo. Here, the bag drop is going to happen at a different location, not the expo. It's a location in Central Park. And according to the website, this location is called Central Park West because it is located between 69 West and 70th West. So you have to go to Central Park to drop off your bag if you want to have clothing to retrieve after your race. And you can do so by dropping this bag off between 9 and 5 on Friday and Saturday. So that's going to be October 31st and November 1st. Have to do it in Central Park. So just remember that. Besides that, all of the events we're going to talk about now are events that you do not have to attend, but maybe you should attend them just because they're fun and you're already in New York. But again, don't blame me if you're tired later on because you didn't get off your feet soon enough. But yeah, there is a ton of events going on, and New York City does indeed turn into a giant running festival, and that's always fun. So one of these events is the opening ceremony, and that opening ceremony takes place on the 31st. So on that Friday, it takes place in Central Park, and you'll see a parade of nations. So you'll see people wearing their traditional gear, if they have any, and flags to showcase all the countries that are partaking in this marathon. That's always super fun to watch, and that is followed by a firework. Very, very nice. And then there is I call it organized shakeout run by Abbott, which is the Abbott Dash to the Finish 5K. You have to sign up for this event. And if you didn't, it is sold out at this point, but it's still a lot of fun to maybe watch. If you do not partake in that and you want to run on Saturday as a shakeout runs, there are tons of shakeout runs organized by different brands in New York City. And the best way of finding those is by going to Eventbrite, as they will be listed, or you can go online, find your favorite brands and see if they are hosting anything. Or you can hop on Instagram. There are tons of people, including myself, who normally post a list of events that are going on. And hopefully I will do that again this year, but there's tons of stuff going on for runners. And that's going to be super fun for you guys. All right, so next, let's move on to logistics. And we're going to talk about the time-sensitive stuff. If you are running the New York City Marathon, you had to pre-select your transportation. If you pick the Staten Island Ferry, you have to be at Whitehall Terminal. Keep in mind that the entire process of taking the ferry and then being loaded onto a bus takes approximately 90 minutes. Then you also have the Midtown bus that's leaving the New York City Library area. That process also takes about 90 minutes. And if you pick the New Jersey bus, which meets at the MetLife Stadium, that process takes about 60 minutes. Now, if you are opting to take private transportations, just remember that the Verrazano Bridge closes at 7 a.m. and you have to be dropped off outside of Fort Staten Island. And if you're using transportation through an international travel tour company, then you are pretty set to go because those tour companies are very good at dropping you off timely. You will be in good hands. Now let's talk about Spectators. There is information for Spectators on the New York City Marathon website, but that's not why you're here. I'm going to tell you that spectating is pretty good from Central Park in the areas of Columbus Circle to the south end of the grandstands, which is approximately 500 meters before the finish. You can also purchase grandstand seating for approximately $59 on the Eventbrite website that I've been talking about, and I'm going to link that down there too, so you have access to that. Now, I know that there is a lounge normally by Tata Consultancy Services called the Blue Line Lounge. I have yet to figure out how to access that hosted nice hospitality tent. And if I figure it out, I will let you know for next year. Now let's mention some other great places to spectate from. If you are in Brooklyn, 4th Avenue. If you're in Manhattan, 1st Avenue. If you're in East Harlem, then between miles 18 to 20. And if you're on 5th Avenue and you want to stand there, stand between miles 23 and 24. Or you could just pick a restaurant somewhere along the course up to your liking and spectate there's just a ton of spectators. So I know it's difficult to navigate because it's not one of those courses like Chicago where you have loops going in and out and you could just easily hop from one to the other. But I think if you sit down and kind of focus and figure out logistically how fast your runner is running and how long it would take to travel from one spot to the other, I'm sure you could still figure out a place to beat your runner to the point so you can stand on the sideline and cheer that person on, which is always very, very welcomed. Now, if you are not in New York, or if you are in New York but you don't want to get up and out of your hotel room and you want to watch this race on television, you can do so by going to WABC TV, which is Channel 7 for the local broadcast, ESPN2 for the national broadcast. Now, for international viewers, there's Eurosport or ESPN International. Or you can go to ABC7 New York or the New York Roadrunner app for live tracking. You can also go to my own personal website, which is runtimes.life, where we will be updating just the elite field, kind of in a manner that is play-by-play. For example, Kipchoge drops his bottle, that sort of thing. If you're interested in watching that, you can do so by going to runtimes.life, which I will also link down in the description. All right, let's talk about some fun things for the runners. Once you navigate your transportation on race day and make it to the starting line, you will find yourself in a place called Athletes Village. And Athletes Village is a fond memory of mine when I ran the New York City Marathon, just because there's so much going on there. So let's talk about all that. Since this event is so large, it is hosting 55,000 runners, the New York City Marathon has done quite a good job in organizing this and making all the runners feel good before the race. If you look on the map, there are several different areas organized by whichever wave you are. And in each one of those waves, you will be able to find snacks. You will be able to find donuts. You will be able to find coffee donated by Dunkin' Donuts. And if you are one of the first people to arrive at Athletes Village, Dunkin' Donuts gives out the Dunkin' Donut hats. The Dunkin' Donuts hats are the pink and orange hats. They always change a little bit every year that you get as a runner, and everybody wants them afterwards. The only thing is you don't have bag check anymore. So you as a runner have to figure out how to transport your Dunkin' Donut hat to the finish line. Normally, runners probably don't want to wear a hat, especially because the temperatures, usually you're not running in ice cold weather and you don't want to have something hot on your hat. So there's all these different tricks of how runners transport their hats to the finish line. What I did, I was wearing a sports bra and I took my hat and I stuck it in the back of my sports bra. And that's how I transported my then sweaty hat back to the finish line. But anyway, enough about the hats. At the starting line, you will also find a tremendous amount of porta potties. I did not check how many porta potties they have for this year. I know that last year they had 1,500 porta potties. So you wait in line, but you don't wait that long. I had a great experience with that race. And I think I went to the bathroom maybe 2 or 3 times. TMI, but we all know when you're a runner and you're nervous, you got to get that done, especially because within the first 3 miles of the race, you're crossing the bridge back from Staten Island. So on that bridge, there is no porta potties. There were rumors going around before I ran my first New York City Marathon that people pee on the side of the bridge. So depending on whether you are on the top of the bridge or the bottom of the bridge, because they separate the runners, then you would get rained on by the people from above peeing down. That I did not find to be true. I also did not see anybody pee off the bridge. Anyway, enjoy your time at Athletes Village. You will be sitting there for a while. I brought myself a trash bag and a piece of cardboard, which I sat on because it was a little bit crisp. At the same time, the sun was coming up and I was just kind of basking in the sun, waiting for this race, running into some friends and just really enjoying it. It's a pretty enjoyable experience. So I hope you will also have a great experience. And one more thing, speaking about basking in the sun, the New York City Marathon, as we all know, the weather can be unpredictable. Some years it's hot, but a lot of years it's pretty cold. And so, as always, I advise for you to go through your donations, find clothes that you would normally donate, bring those with you to New York City Marathon and wear them, because you'll have the bins where you can dispose of all your throwaway clothes. Again, no back check, so you can't take any of this stuff home. So wear your throwaway layers wisely, and then if it gets too warm for you, you can always get rid of them. And I recommend that for literally every marathon, right? Because it's always cold at an ideal race day. So now that we are done talking about everything that happens at Athletes Village, you are ready to start the New York City Marathon. You are ready to hear Frank Sinatra's New York, New York blasting through the speakers. and get emotional for this course that we haven't talked about yet. So we're going to do that right now. And what better person to do that with than a local New York running coach, a super fast runner, Kristen Smith. She's going to walk us through the New York City Marathon course, step by step, corner by corner, so that way you guys are fully prepared. So let's do that.
The first 2 miles are the Verrazano Bridge. It's a very long crossing, basically 1 mile up and 1 mile down. You can in those 2 miles essentially, even out, whatever you've lost on the front end, you can basically get right back on the back end, like right away. So once you're starting from mile 2 to 3, you're in Brooklyn already. You can kind of consider it a net zero. You're in Brooklyn, I should say from the beginning, you're in Brooklyn for the longest portion of the course. So from mile 3, you start running north and you're basically going through the heart of Brooklyn commercial district itself and the business center. The 3 courses all come together at mile 8. From mile 8 to 9 is basically a small climb. It's on the street is Lafayette Street. After that, basically you're heading down from Lafayette, you turn to Bedford Avenue, and that part goes through Williamsburg. The most notable thing about Williamsburg is that it's pretty quiet. In terms of New York City Marathon, that's a very quiet section of the course. There'll still be people out, but it's a contrast to other sections where the sidewalks are literally, 4 or 5 or 6 deep with people. Williamsburg is not like that. So that's all of Brooklyn. The halfway point of the marathon actually occurs on the Pulaski Bridge. You're not in Queens for very long. You're in Queens for about a mile, and that's it. And what you do in Queens is you end up snaking and making a lot of turns. I counted it out. I want to say you make like 7 turns in 1 mile. The main point of getting into Queens is to get onto the Queensboro Bridge. The Queensboro Bridge represents the second largest climb of New York City Marathon. And the Queens Bridge is 100 foot gain there over a mile or so. Once you exit Queensbridge, that takes you into Manhattan. And this is one of the best sections of the entire race right here. So you turn left, you make a full semicircle, you turn all the way around, you start to hear the crowds before you can even see them. From mile 16 all the way to mile 20, basically. First Avenue, long straight shot, nothing in your way. A little bit of rolly, but really very calm in terms of dialing in your pace and getting into a rhythm. That's a great place to do it. And it's at the point where you really want to start to do that. So from Manhattan, I call it Manhattan Part 1, you dip into the Bronx for less than a mile. It's really short. You barely go into the Bronx before you exit again. Mile 21, you're back in Manhattan for the second time and the last time. So at that point, once you've reached Manhattan Part 2, that's when the race is really on. Mile 21, you're in Harlem. Mile 23 starts. It's like 22.75. You start an incline on Fifth Avenue. So from roughly 23 to 24, it's a climb the whole way. It's so gradual, it's imperceptible. So the incline starts, you're on Fifth Avenue at 110th Street. That incline lasts all the way up to Fifth Avenue and 90th Street. Beautiful thing, you get up to mile 24, and that takes your turn. You make a quick right turn into Central Park, and then an immediate left to go south on Central Park Main Drive. From 24 on the Central Park Drive, you go south for a while, all the way south to exit the park onto Central Park South, and then you make an immediate right there. You're on another gradual climb. As you get closer to the end of the race, you're going to notice the energy and the crowds. Once you get to Columbus Circle in the Time Warner Center, you make a right, and that's when you head back into Central Park. There are flags on either side of every nation. There is, to know, just a slight climb again as you go into Central Park and you finish. It's another 20 feet. You feel like a rock star at the concert. That's how you feel at the end of New York City Marathon.
Thank you again, Kristen, for this very detailed course walkthrough. We super appreciate it. And I guess we are now ready for the New York City Marathon, aren't you? If you are not and you have any more questions, please put them down in the comments below. And maybe if you're watching this video, check down there if there are any questions. Maybe you have run this race before and you can answer them and put another runner at ease. Also, if you feel like I forgot anything, please let me know down below so I can have a better episode next year. I will be there at the finish line doing interviews with runners, and I'm very, very excited about that. Have so much fun running this race. Put your name on the bib because it's going to be amazing hearing all these crowds cheering, not just for everyone, but they'll also say your name. And that really can help you in the times that you most need it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, see you in New York.